I wanted to share my top 3 marketing tips, things that I wish I had known, that if I could go back in time, I would tell myself. They might be different from your top 3 marketing tips, but after being in this writing and self-publishing industry for 3 years now, seriously, these are my top 3 things that I would share that I hope will help you guys. That's my goal here, is just to be like, I just want to encourage you. These are the top 3 things that I wish I would have done better. And so without further ado, let's jump into it. And just FYI, since there's only 3, they're obviously going to be very big picture because I don't have enough room to do my usual detailed, like step by step by step by step. Although I probably will still be very detailed. That's just who I am. So the first one is pay attention to the ROI. And so a lot of people ask me, what is ROI? It is return on investment. It's just a business term for your return on investment. And when I first started out, that was still very much a high concept thing that I couldn't really wrap my mind around. I don't know if I'm using high concept correctly, but whatever. ROI is actually pretty dang simple. It's not always easy to calculate, and it doesn't become simple when you bring it to certain things, but the concept itself is actually pretty simple. For example, if you spend $500 and you only make $250, the return on investment is minus $250. It's horrible. However, to use that same $500 initial investment and then you make $5,000 from what you invested in, your return on investment is now $4,500. So that is an amazing return on investment. The trick is when you actually apply it to certain things, like for example, cover design. Let's just say $250 because covers can be less than that and a lot more than that. And so $250 is an easy number. The problem when you're calculating ROI then is, how do you know what your cover is returning to you? Like, how do you actually know how much money you're making back on a cover? You can already see that it's a little bit tricky, because how do you actually calculate how much of your income, your return of the money came from the cover itself? It's like, how would you even know? Honestly, I don't know, but you can calculate kind of the bigger picture. So like taking the book itself, for example, and if you put money into the editor and you put money into the cover designer, and maybe you put in a little bit of money on formatting or proofreaders or that kind of stuff. And say that your total that you put in was $1,000. That's your investment. As long as you can make at least $1,000, you're breaking even. If you make more than $1,000, you had a good return on investment, or at least you had some. And if you make less than $1,000, then that is a bad ROI, if that makes sense. I'm not using this language perfectly. Please don't judge me. But the idea is that a lot of authors, including myself, have made very large investments. And if it's actually an investment, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about for fun things. Like if you're just doing character art for fun, for yourself, because you love it, and it's like it's more like buying shoes, then no big deal, that's fine. But if you're actually making an investment and you're wanting a return on it, that's what we're talking about. And so a lot of authors will pour tons of money into a book. Like maybe they do $2,000 editor and $1,000 cover design, and that's $3,000, plus all the other things. And then their book typically books, like a really good royalty is $4 a book. And so, they might sell, even if they sell 100 books, that would be about $400. And so you can see that the initial investment of $3,000 or whatever, and then the return on investment of $400, that is bad ROI. So what I mean when I say pay attention to the ROI is to basically ask yourself, whenever you're going to purchase something, what is going to be my return on investment? So again, just to bring up character art, because it's a really easy example, I have done character art and I loved it. It was very much fun for me. But at this point, so far, I haven't used it for anything besides for fun. And so there is zero return on investment for me. So like, again, I compared it to buying shoes because it was just for me, it was for fun. But if I was actually buying character art for like a business purpose, and I'm like, I hope that this makes, it was, I think, $20 to $25. So I hope this makes my $25 back. That's not going to happen. And so when you approach other things like your cover design or your editor or formatting or proofreaders or whatever else, buying a camera for YouTube, whatever else it might be. If you take the time to look at your return on investment beforehand and figure out, you know, what that would need to look like to make your money back, it might change your mind. You might make a much smarter business decision and decide not to purchase that particular thing. For example, this YouTube channel now makes me money. So I did finally invest in this camera that I'm using right now. But for a few years, I just used the camera on my MacBook, and I still probably will use the camera on my phone and things like that. And I still use iMovie to edit. And so I just think that your return on investment is basically, do you want to be profitable? I hope that makes sense. Let me try really hard to apply this to books. And I'm going to try my best to give you one more good example, but it is really tricky. Like, it's going to be so case by case. So do the math for yourself. But this is just an example. So let's say that your books make a $4 royalty. And so just so you know, for my books, that's kind of on the high end. And I think in self-publishing is higher than traditional publishing. So let's say $4 royalty per book. And let's say that my goal is to sell as a newer author. I would say 100 books would be a fantastic, like a pre-order sales goal. And that could be a really, really big goal, by the way, depending on like how big your audience is and how like comfortable you are with marketing. But anyway, I digress. So $4 times 100 books means that your ROI is about $400. I don't know if you call it ROI until you've spent and you've done the investment and then you get the return. But anyway, you get the idea. So you're thinking, okay, roughly I think I'm going to have $400 in income. Then you know what your initial investment should be. And in my opinion, it would probably be $400 or less if possible. Now, that might not always be possible to make something really quality, but you can try really hard and then you can know, okay, I might not make all my money back. But you have that knowledge going into it. So pay attention to the ROI. My second biggest marketing tip is one that I struggled to put into like a one-liner, but I would say if I could really nail it down, it would be don't spread yourself too thin. Because if you are anything like me, you probably are, you know, subscribed to newsletters and you're listening to people's advice and you're picking up marketing strategies and whatnot. And so every single one of those people and places are saying, you know, you have to do A, B, and C to succeed, and you have to do it or you won't succeed. And then somebody else is like, well, what about D, E, F? And then somebody just like, G is actually the number one way. And somebody else is like, H, I, J is really how I sell, and you have to do this to sell. And pretty soon you're just doing like 1 million things. The reason that people struggle with marketing and they feel stressed and overwhelmed is because they're doing too many things and they are spread way too thin. And so the reason that I see this as a problem is because to really succeed at something and to do it well, you need to be kind of an expert in a sense. You need to have put enough time in to figure it out and become good at it. That's how you succeed, right? And so if you just reverse engineer that, and if you think about it long enough, that means that you have to actually have the time to put into that thing to become good at it. And so if you're spreading yourself over 50 different marketing strategies, you're never going to have enough time to actually be good at any of them. And if you can't master any of them, then you're not going to be effective at any of them. And therefore, the brutal truth is that probably all of those marketing techniques are falling flat and none of them are helping you. And so, as weird as it sounds, it's better to get focused. And so I want to be the voice of reason for you guys today. If in case you're not hearing this from anybody else, it's okay to say no to things. It's actually beneficial for you. It will actually help you become better at marketing if you do less marketing. Not less time-wise, but less spread thin and less like I have to have my hand in a little bit of everything, because you can only do so much. You can only learn so much at a time. And so I personally think it's better to get really focused and get really good at something to become effective at that marketing technique. So personally, the way that I do this, and I talked about this a lot in How Your Book Sells Itself. If you guys are interested, I'll flash the cover on the screen and you can check it out. But I talked about how it's actually better to pick between 1 to 3 focuses and get really, really good at that. And don't move on to another marketing strategy until you've figured out the ones you're doing, and stick to those. And it can actually be really freeing, because then when people come along and say, oh, you actually need to do this to sell books well, you can be like, that's fine, I can learn that next, but right now I'm focusing on this, this, and this. And that's where I am, that's what I'm focusing on, and it's working for me. This is just gonna make all of your marketing so much more effective to just be really, really super focused. And so an example of that is like if you choose to do arcs and you really want to get the word out about your book through maybe like an Instagram tour, and instead of, you know, messaging a handful of people, like 5 people, and then you just move on and you never hear from them, or maybe one answers and so you're like, okay, I'll send out 1 book, and it didn't really, you know, make much of an impact, but you had to move on because you had your newsletter to write and your Facebook ads and your Amazon ads to figure out and all that other stuff. So you're like, I gotta move on. If instead you're like, okay, one of my things that I'm focusing on is arcs. So I'm actually going to do my research and find all the people who read my specific book who would actually enjoy it. I'm going to spend the time it takes to craft a really, really effective message to them that is like, hey, I really love like their specific thing, and it's very individualized. And then yeah, maybe the handful of people didn't answer, and so that's fine because you actually wrote to 50 people instead of 5 people. And so even if, you know, half of them don't answer, that's still 25 other people, and those 25 people will all be talking about it to their audience, and you'll be reaching them so much more, and so many more people so much more effectively. I hope that makes sense. I mean, it's really that simple. Because you took the time to actually become good at something, you're going to take it to the level it needs to be to actually effectively sell books. And so, to be fair, you might pick some things that aren't as effective as you want them to be, and that's normal too. But as long as you're getting focused, you can figure that out and then you can move on. It's all about being focused and picking, you know, 1 to 3 strategies to really hone in on and become a master at and get really good at it. And my third biggest tip that I also wish I'd known, it's very big picture, but stick with me because I'm going to show you how it applies and how valuable it is. And it is something that I learned from Sarah Cannon over at Heart Breathing, so I can't take credit for it either. But I just think that she's talked about it a lot. I'm pretty sure she has multiple videos on it, and it's just such good advice. So I wanted to bring it up because it's something else, again, that I wish I would have known when I first started out. And that is to always remember your ultimate goals. Another person who talks about this a lot is Rachel Bell, and she's not even a writer. She does coaching and other stuff, but she talks about long-term strategy versus tactics. So you're looking at your big ultimate strategy instead of the, you know, detailed tactics. Like, this is a random tactic for your newsletter and writing a headline or something like that. That's a tactic. But then the big picture, the strategy, for me, I'll give you my example, is that I am wanting to reach new readers and I'm wanting to keep current readers. So everything that I do in my marketing tactics should be filtered through, is this helping me reach new readers who have never heard of me before and helping them find me, or is this helping me keep my current readers and continue to give them books that they enjoy? But the idea is that if you know your ultimate goal or goals and you're filtering everything through that lens, like every marketing strategy that you consider, you ask yourself, does this fit with my goals? It's going to change the game and make you say no to certain things that actually, you know, it sounded fun, it sounded great, but turns out it doesn't fit with your goals at all, and it's not going to help you reach your ultimate goals. So for example, recently I was emailed to speak at an event this coming October, and so they wanted to like start planning it in January, and they were like, this is gonna be awesome, here's what the event is, blah blah blah. But I realized as I was looking at, my gut was like, you know, it'd be so cool to be a speaker. I've done it before, but not much, so I'm like, maybe that could be my new thing and that'd be really fun. But then I looked at it and I was like, okay, this is not my target audience, so I am not going to be reaching any new readers really, because that's just not that's not what they're there for. They're not there for my genre. And then number 2, none of my current readers are going to be in this audience, so I am also not going to be helping myself keep current readers. It's not hitting either of those two ultimate goals. So as fun as speaking would be, and it was a paid gig, I said no. I said, thank you so much, I am honored, but this is not a good fit for me right now. So it's okay to say no. I feel like that should be a bonus tip. It is okay to say no to things. Like every writer, when you're first starting out, sometimes it can be good to say yes because you're expanding your reach, you're just getting to know new people, you're learning what you do and don't like, and sometimes that's a good thing. But at a certain point, it's okay to say no and be like, this does not align with my ultimate goals. And so I hope that makes sense. Let me know in the comments if you agree with these things or if you have any other thoughts. Let me know if you have your top 3 marketing tips, because I think everybody's top 3 is different and it probably changes over time too. Like I always say, I really hope you guys like this video. Definitely give it a thumbs up if it helped you. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and there is that little bell that I always tell you guys about where you can be notified every time I have a new video. So go ahead and ring that if you like that, and I will talk to you guys again very soon. Bye!